The series begins by introducing a young girl named Chun-Mi, who comes from a family with a military background. Her biological mother passed away long ago, and now she lives with her father, Chun-san, a member of the military, and her stepmother. As the only daughter in the family, Chun-Mi is deeply cherished by her father and grandfather. Unfortunately, her relationship with her stepmother is strained. One day, Chun-Mi dreams of becoming a litigator. Upon waking, her maid Guer informs her that her father has been imprisoned on accusations of attempted assault. Refusing to believe the charges, Chun-Mi sets out to find evidence to clear her father's name. Accompanied by Guer, Chun-Mi rushes to the government office, escorted by two men named Jin-E and a mysterious figure. Apparently, Chun-Mi plans to seek help from Mr. Yang, a close friend of her grandfather, to address her father's case. However, despite his willingness to assist, Mr. Yang is unable to help. As she prepares to leave, Chun-Mi realizes she left behind her late mother's law book in Mr. Yang's office. Upon returning, she encounters a commanding officer named Wu Wei, known for his flirtatious nature. Noticing Chun-Mi's unusual appearance, Wu Wei accuses her of being a thief. Unwilling to accept such an accusation, Chun-Mi douses him with water. Later, Chun-Mi visits her father in prison to uncover what truly happened. At that moment, Chun-san recounts that after finishing his duty and preparing to return home, a beggar suddenly snatched a hairpin he had bought as a birthday gift for Chun-Mi. As Chun-san chased the thief, he unknowingly entered the residence of a woman named Miss Zong-nong. During this time, someone struck him from behind, causing him to lose consciousness, and when he awoke, he was already in prison, accused of assault. That evening, after a long day managing her father's case, Chun-Mi and Guer finally return home. Before parting ways, Jin-E returns Chun-Mi's bag, which she had left at the government office. It turns out that Jin-Ye's friend had retrieved it for her. The next day, the trial for Chun-san's case begins. During this time, Chun-Mi boldly steps forward, offering to serve as her father's defense litigator. Initially, she faces resistance from various parties, including the judge and the Supreme Court Prime Minister, who is observing the proceedings. Additionally, they belittle Chun-Mi, thinking she is not serious, as no woman has ever become a litigator before. However, when Chun-Mi demonstrates her legal knowledge and intelligence, she is accepted as her father's defense litigator, making history as the first female litigator. Determined to make the most of this chance, Chun-Mi begins presenting evidence gathered during her investigation, with the assistance of Jin-E. She points out irregularities in the case, explaining that considering her father's age, it is unlikely he would have had the strength to commit the alleged assault. This is further proven through an experiment by Jin-E, who, despite being young, was exhausted after covering the distance involved. Ultimately, the real culprit confesses that they were paid by Miss Zong-nong to frame Chun-san. Following this event, Chun-Mi's reputation spreads widely. Many people become curious about her, and even Wu Wei and the Prime Minister, Zheng Yuan, are impressed by her talent. It was revealed that Wu Wei and Zheng Yuan are representatives from the emperor, currently patrolling various cities to inspect judges and officials suspected of corruption. They also carry a secret mission from the emperor to search for a lost inkstone. Meanwhile, the mysterious man who once assisted Chun-Mi is revealed to be from the Mao Pavilion, and he is in Bianzhou City on the same mission related to the inkstone. The following morning, Chun-san, now freed, is reunited with his family. To celebrate, Chun-Mi and her father visit the Lin Pavilion restaurant. Just as they are about to enter, a man named Zhuqi stumbles out, vomiting after eating the fish soup served in the restaurant. His disruption attracts a crowd, as he accuses the restaurant of serving poisonous food. Shortly afterward, Miss Wang Ruo, the owner of Lin Pavilion, appears, and Zhuqi becomes even bolder in his accusations, publicly shaming the restaurant. Chun-san tries to calm the situation, but suddenly, Zhuqi collapses in pain, and upon examination, he is found dead. All the evidence now points to Miss Wang Ruo as the prime suspect in Zhuqi's death. That night, Chun-Mi visits Miss Wang Ruo in prison. Having known Miss Wang Ruo for a long time, Chun-Mi is confident of her innocence and decides to serve as her defense litigator. Miss Wang Ruo then explains that the fish soup she sells is made with a type of mackerel, which is naturally poisonous. However, she has a secret method to neutralize the toxins, a method she has safely used for years. Not long after, the trial day arrives. During this time, Chunmi is seen represents the defense for Miss Wang Ruo, while Sunbin advocates for Miss Zhao, seeking justice for the death of her husband, Zhuqi. Unexpectedly, a new issue arises when Judge Zhong Bao demonstrates blatant bias, hastily closing the case and expelling Chunmi from the court, refusing her any chance to defend her client. Fortunately, the commotion halts with the arrival of Prime Minister Zheng Yuan, the Supreme Court, and Commander Wu Wei, who promptly arrest Judge Zhong Bao for a history of accepting bribes during his tenure. With a new judge, Judge Yuan, the trial continues. Sun Bin then presents strong evidence and witnesses to prove that Miss Wang Ruo is responsible for Zhuqi's death. He argues that the mackerel soup at Lin Pavilion was prepared and served solely by Miss Wang Ruo, with no involvement from anyone else, a fact confirmed by Miss Wang Ruo's own admission. Not only that, Sun Bin also brings 4 witnesses to reinforce his argument. One a physician, Colonel Liu, who analyzed Zhuqi's vomit, Mr. Hung, a customer who also felt unwell that day, and the head investigator overseeing the case. Although initially cornered by Sun Bin's accusations, Chunmi cleverly turns the situation around using his own witnesses. She argues that if the mackerel soup truly caused Zhuqi's death, Mr. Hung should also be gravely ill by now. However, after Wen's examination, it is clear that Mr. Hung remains in perfect health. One further adds that another victim, a 70-year-old man, experienced vomiting but ultimately did not die. With this finding, the judge decides to postpone the trial for further investigation. That night, in search of additional evidence, Chunmi sneaks out without her father's permission. To avoid the guards, she attempts to climb over a boundary wall. Just as she nearly slips, Jin Yi, who had helped her before, suddenly appears. Recognizing him as an ally, Chunmi asks for his assistance to cross the wall. Impressed by his skill, Chunmi successfully makes it over. Unbeknownst to them, their actions are being watched by one of Commander Wu Wei's spies. In their quest for evidence, Chunmi and Jin Yi sneak into Lin Pavilion restaurant. While exploring the place, they discover a broken wooden fragment, stained with blood. Chunmi immediately takes it, thinking it might serve as additional evidence in the case. On their way back, Chunmi and Jin Yi encounter Wu Wei, who invites them to inspect Zhuqi's home. At that moment, they spot 2 suspicious men and a woman nearby. Connecting the blood traces from Lin Pavilion and the marks on the wood, Chunmi asks Colonel Liu to examine Zhuqi's body. Shortly after, Colonel Liu returns and reports a wound on Zhuqi's thigh. He has matched the splinters found in the wound to the evidence Chunmi brought, and they are indeed identical. Chunmi also presents 2 more witnesses, a medicine seller and Zhuqi's neighbor. They testify that a few days prior, Zhuqi purchased medicine from the store, and his neighbor reveals that Zhuqi was highly skilled in martial arts and could unlock doors without leaving a trace. Despite these revelations, Sun Bin challenges Chunmi's claims, questioning why, if Zhuqi was so strong, he would die so easily after eating fish soup. Addressing Sun Bin's doubts, Chunmi explains to the judge that while visiting Zhuqi's residence, where she noticed Red Bull plants in his yard, it is known that a combination of mackerel soup and Red Bull plants creates a lethal poison. Suspecting Zhuqi's wife, Miss Zhao, of involvement, Chunmi carefully approaches her, persuading her to confess. Eventually, Miss Zhao opens up, revealing her reasons for killing her husband. For years, Zhuqi had treated her with cruelty, beating and torturing her, and even causing the death of her parents. Not long after, Wu Wei arrives with Miss Ong Nong and a military subordinate named Fu Gui, heightening the tension. During this time, the truth finally unfolds. Everything began with Miss Zong Nong, who is carrying Fu Gui's child. All this time, Fu Gui manipulated Miss Zong Nong to frame Chun San out of jealousy toward his accomplishments as a fellow military officer. However, Miss Zong Nong, blindly in love with Fu Gui, discovers he is obsessed with Miss Wang Rua, sparking her jealousy. Additionally, knowing how Zhu Qi mistreated his wife, Miss Zhang Nong collaborated with Miss Zhao. They devised a plan in which Miss Zhang Nong paid Zhu Qi to stir up trouble at Lin Pavilion, giving Miss Zhao the opportunity to end her suffering by poisoning her husband. After everything is revealed, just as the judge is about to give a verdict, Chunmi requests permission to speak on behalf of Miss Zhang Nong, Miss Zhao, and Miss Wang Rua. With her legal expertise, Chunmi argues for leniency in their sentencing. Fortunately, her logical and lawful defense convinces the judge, who grants her request. With this victory, Chunmi's name becomes even more well-known as a talented female litigator. Her career now has wide-open prospects, further boosted by an invitation from Prime Minister Zheng Yuan, the Supreme Court, and Commander Wu Wei to join them on patrols. Later that night, while Chunmi is walking, Wu Wei suddenly appears and sweeps her away. In a slightly drunken conversation, Wu Wei shares that today marks the anniversary of his mother's death. Sensing his sorrow, Chunmi consoles him, explaining that, although his mother is gone, his existence in this world is the greatest proof of her legacy. Moved by her words, Wu Wei embraces Chunmi. The next day, another problem arises. One evening, Chunmi's stepmother, upon learning that Chun San will also be joining Chunmi on patrol, becomes displeased. She tries to administer a potion to make Chun San sleep for days. Fortunately, Chunmi, noticing her stepmother's suspicious behavior, intervenes and stops her plan. It turns out her stepmother has been jealous, feeling that Chun San dotes too much on Chunmi. Not only that, she also had hoped for a child to shift Chun San's attention. Angered by her actions, Chun San decides to divorce her. During patrol, Chunmi assists Zheng Yuan in legally resolving cases. Their first stop is Wizhou City, where Chunmi starts reviewing potentially problematic cases. One case she wishes to re-examine involves Miss Zhou Jie, a widow whose mother-in-law, Miss Mu, died suddenly. The case is strange because, despite having a close relationship with her mother-in-law, Miss Zhou Jie confessed to the murder. While investigating, Chunmi is unaware that she is being followed by the man who once helped her. At the crime scene, Chunmi finds significant evidence left by the real killer. These findings allow her to build a case, proving that Ms. Zhou Jie's confession was false. Soon after, Wu Wei arrives, revealing that he has been aware of the mysterious man shadowing Chunmi from Bianzhou City. In the retrial, Chunmi successfully persuades Ms. Zhou Jie that her mother-in-law was murdered, prompting Ms. Zhou Jie to admit that she had lied. She explains that she did so to protect her mother-in-law's reputation, as she had seen her with another man just days before her death. Believing this man to be her mother-in-law's lover, Ms. Zhou Jie thought her shame over the affair had led to her death. However, Chunmi uncovers the true culprit was Miss Mu's brother-in-law, Wei Yong, a gambler who constantly demanded money from her mother-in-law. In the end, the case is resolved and closed. Meanwhile, unknown to the others, Wu Wei arrests Jin Yi, suspecting his involvement in the Inkstone case. It turns out that Jin Yi and his companion, named Yi Cha, are key targets in this secret mission. Another fact emerges. Chunmi was invited on patrol not only for her intelligence but also as a way for Wu Wei and Zheng Yuan to use her to draw Yi Cha out. The patrol continues to the next destination, Yozhou City. Upon arrival at the city gates, Wu Wei and his troops encounter a minor conflict with a group of people transporting a body for burial. To prevent further trouble, Chun San lets them pass first. Once in the city, they are invited by a government official named Ge Luo to a family gathering in their honor. As a result, they engage in conversation, getting to know each other. However, a soldier soon arrives to inform Ge Luo of a robbery at the Iron Vault. The next morning, Gui'er and Chunmi go hiking to enjoy the scenic mountains. However, as they head back, they get lost in the forest. Unexpectedly, Chunmi slips and falls while searching for a way out. At the bottom of the ravine, Chunmi is startled to find Jin Yi's friend in a bad state. Despite his frightening appearance, Chunmi notices his pain and decides to move him to a safer place. After giving him food, she hears Gui'er calling her name, so Chunmi leaves him in a small hut, promising to return later. Back in the city, the atmosphere has turned tense. Exercising his authority, Goluo closes all gates to catch the vault robber. Not only that, to prevent the Supreme Court Prime Minister from interfering, Goluo poisons Zheng Yuan and tortures anyone suspected of involvement in the robbery. With Zheng Yuan unable to investigate, Wu Wei steps in to uncover the true source of the crime, especially how the thieves accessed the vault. During this time, they discover a tunnel dug behind the storage crates in the vault. Determined to help, Chunmi also vows to free a man named Shinfeng, currently held captive by Goluo and tortured for being falsely accused as the thief, despite the lack of any evidence against him. The following day, Chunmi keeps her promise to return to the mysterious man she found. She brings him food and clothing. As they discuss his identity, the man confesses that he is a fugitive, unwilling to reveal his background as he is a killer. He discloses that he comes from an infamous assassin organization known for its skill and strength, led by his father, Zhu Zi. Since childhood, his life had been harsh. He was constantly trained and conditioned to become a skilled assassin. Because of this background, he feared that Chunmi might become a target of his group. Sensing the man's cold demeanor, Chunmi decides to return to the city outpost. Despite her doubts about his identity, she feels he is a good person and returns to the forest the next morning. During this time, they spend the day together, sharing warm conversations. That night, far south of the city, a young woman named Yi Li, living in a place called Mao Pavilion, hears troubling news regarding young Master Yi Cha. At the same time, the Grand Secretary decides to head to Yozo City as a result. The following day, the trial concerning the vault theft begins. Shinfeng, a clinic doctor in Yozo, stands as the defendant. The trial is tense, with frequent clashes between Chunmi and Goluo. Trusting Shinfeng to be honest and upstanding, Chunmi uses her wit to secure his release. After the trial, Chunmi searches for Yi Cha, and they meet in a quiet spot. At that moment, Yi Cha compliments her bravery in confronting Goluo during the trial. Soon after, Chunmi invites Yi Cha to celebrate Chinese Valentine's Day together. That night, as Chunmi drifts to sleep, she is startled by an intruder attempting to kill her. The assassin, sent by the Grand Secretary, aims to eliminate Chunmi, whom he views as a threat to Yi Cha's mission to find the prized inkstone. Fortunately, Yi Cha arrives just in time to save Chunmi. The assassination attempt alarms everyone, especially as the assassin had killed Chunmi's guard. When Wu Wei asks who saved her, Chunmi hesitates to reveal the man's identity. The next morning, Chunmi meets with Yi Cha again to keep their promise of celebrating Chinese Valentine's Day together. Their bond grows stronger as they enjoy their time together. During this moment, Yi Cha finally reveals his name to Chunmi, and an unspoken affection begins to blossom between them. Elsewhere, Yi Li, revealed to be Yi Cha's younger sister, arrives in Yozo City, hiding from the Grand Secretary's pursuit. In her escape, she accidentally encounters Wu Wei. In her hurry, she drops a vial of medicine, which alerts Wu Wei to her association with Mao Pavilion. Seizing the chance, he captures and detains Yi Li for questioning. With the investigation into the theft concluded, the patrol plans are set to continue to Luoyang City. However, before they proceed, Chun Sen approaches Zheng Yuan and Wu Wei to request permission for a brief detour to Laisui, the town where Chun Mi's stepmother resides. This detour is due to his in-laws' anger over his decision to divorce their daughter, who is pregnant. Thus, they quickly depart from Yozo for Laisui. At the same time, Jin Yi and Yi Cha observe their departure, tasked by the Grand Secretary to monitor Wu Wei and ensure he does not obtain the inkstone. Before reaching the town, Zheng Yuan, still recovering, decides to stay at a nearby residence for rest. During this time, Chunmi and her family proceed to meet Miss Ying Nun, the grandmother of her stepmother's family. After a family discussion, they agree that Chunmi's stepmother will not proceed with the divorce. However, as they prepare to leave, Chunmi's brother-in-law, Feng, arrives with a group of protesters, accusing Miss Ying Nun of murdering his brother, Mr. Fan Jian. Because of this, Chunmi and Chun San are asked to assist in resolving the case. With her strong-willed personality, Miss Ying Nun dismisses their offer of help, turning instead to insult Chun-Mi, ridiculing her profession as a litigator and openly stating that no man would want to marry someone like her. Meanwhile, Yi Li, who is being held captive by Wu Wei, repeatedly tries to escape, though unsuccessfully. Her presence in Lai Sui remains unknown to her brother, Yi Cha, who is focused on the Inkstone mission. The Grand Secretary has deliberately withheld news of Yi Li's escape from Mao Pavilion, wanting Yi Cha to stay focused on his assignment. Later, at Miss Ying Nun's residence, government officers arrive to arrest her, causing an uproar. Despite this, Chun-Mi decides to take on the case. Accompanied by Yi Cha, she begins her investigation by visiting the lake. Chun-Mi strongly suspects that rumors of a drowning at this lake are linked to the disappearance of Mr. Fan Jian, Miss Ying Nun's husband. The lake is also near Mr. Fan Jian's last known location. The following day, the trial concerning Mr. Fan Jian's disappearance begins. Witnesses, including servants of Miss Ying Nun's household, testify that on the night before Mr. Fan Jian vanished, they saw Miss Ying Nun striking her husband and threatening to kill him. Consequently, the trial's proceedings weigh heavily against Miss Ying Nun, painting her as the prime suspect in the murder. In another location, under orders from the Grand Secretary, Jeannie sneaks into Wu Wei's residence to confirm Yi Li's whereabouts. However, Wu Wei quickly notices him, becoming suspicious that this intruder might be from Mao Pavilion, attempting either to rescue or kill Yi Li. At that moment, Yi Li wagers with Wu Wei, questioning whether Mao Pavilion will indeed try to save her or ultimately aim to eliminate her. Not long after, as Jeannie escapes from Wu Wei's soldiers, he sustains injuries but manages to flee and reunites with the Grand Secretary. Soon after, in the Luoyang courthouse, Chun-Mi appears as the defense litigator for Miss Ing Nan. She begins laying out her theory, linking the drowning case at the lake with the disappearance of Mr. Fan Jian. Chun-Mi tells the judge that the evidence is outside the court. When Yi Cha brings a chest forward as proof, it reveals the body of Mr. Fan Jian. With this finding, the court proceedings are immediately postponed. Afterward, Yi Cha claims to be Zheng Yuan's subordinate assisting Chun-Mi and informs Chun San about a conversation he overheard from Mr. Fan Jian himself, that the child in his wife's womb is not Chun San's but actually Mr. Fan Jian's. This shocking revelation leaves Chun San stunned, realizing he has been involved with a deeply troubled family. Elsewhere, Yi Li, asleep in her room, is ambushed by assassins sent by the Grand Secretary. However, they discover that it is Wu Wei lying in Yi Li's bed, and he swiftly overpowers them. This event confirms Yi Li's suspicions that Mao Pavilion indeed seeks to kill her. As per their agreement, Wu Wei now pledges to protect her. Together, they decide to alter their plans and, to evade further attacks, prepare to leave Lai Sui at once. On the road, Wu Wei and Yi Li are suddenly attacked by the White Ghost faction, a group hired by the Grand Secretary with a relentless aim to kill Yi Li. To protect her, Wu Wei suffers a poisoned arrow wound. Luckily, they are rescued by Han Feng, who helps them escape. However, the poison spreads rapidly, and Wu Wei loses consciousness before reaching Luoyang. Later, when he awakens, Wu Wei and Yi Li are safe, with Yi Li having already treated the poison. Meanwhile, Chun-Mi and the others are on their way into Luoyang. Miss Chu is thrilled, as Zheng Yuan has freed her father and grandfather from their military responsibilities. Not only that, Luoyang will also be the city where Chun-Mi and her family will settle. Once Wu Wei recovers, he shares with Yi Li his desire to avenge Han Feng, the friend who sacrificed himself to help them escape. Yi Li then suggests an idea. The only way to lure out the White Ghost, Mao Pavilion's most skilled assassins, is to spread a rumor of a fake marriage between Wu Wei and herself. Meanwhile, Chun-Mi is at the house she plans to buy when she hears a loud scream. She then discovers that a man has attempted to do the unthinkable. The man is a distant cousin of the property owner, known for his reckless spending. Shocked by the news, the owner never thought his cousin would go through with such an act. After understanding the root of the issue, Chunmi steps in to help them resolve it. In gratitude for her kindness, the property owner gives Chunmi the house for free. Later, at the villa, Wu Wei approaches Yi Li to question her true identity and her connection to Mao Pavilion. At that moment, Yi Li reveals that she is, in fact, the daughter of Zhu Zi and a young lady of Mao Pavilion. Hearing this, Wu Wei is taken aback, as Mao Pavilion has long been an enemy of the palace. He questions why Yi Li would risk living with him. Without further explanation, Yi Li declares that her desire to see Mao Pavilion fall is stronger than anything else. The next morning, a formal wedding ceremony is staged, and news of Wu Wei and Yi Li's marriage spreads, drawing considerable attention. At this point, Yi Cha finally confides in Chunmi, revealing that he is Zhu Zi's son and that Wu Wei's bride is his sister. Yi Cha explains that his mother died when he was young and that his father has always seen him merely as a tool to achieve his goals. Unaware of the true situation, Yi Cha suspects that Wu Wei's intention isn't marriage but to kill his sister. Determined, Yi Cha vows to do whatever it takes to save Yi Li. That evening, under Zhu Zi's name, the Grand Secretary orders the White Ghost Group to assassinate Yi Li at the villa. Wu Wei, caught off guard by the sudden attack, fights to protect her. Just as the situation grows dire, Yi Cha arrives to assist. Recognizing Yi Cha, the White Ghost assassins retreat. In that moment, Yi Li addresses Yi Cha as her brother, shocking Wu Wei, who realizes for the first time that Yi Li is Yi Cha's sister. Soon after, Yi Li goes on to explain that the Grand Secretary has been deceiving them all, as their father, Zhu Zi, has actually been dead for some time. Yi Li shares that since Yi Cha left on his mission, she was forbidden from seeing their father. Growing suspicious, she sneaked into their father's room and discovered that someone, under the Grand Secretary's orders, was impersonating him. Upon learning this painful truth, Yi Cha is filled with anger and sorrow, wanting nothing more than to kill the Grand Secretary to avenge his father. However, Chunmi calms him, explaining that if Yi Cha kills the Grand Secretary now, he will end up bearing the blame for all of Mao Pavilion's crimes. Instead, they must focus on capturing the Grand Secretary and forcing him to confess. At that moment, Wu Wei also agrees to help, as he has pledged to protect Yi Li. The next day, Yi Cha confronts the Grand Secretary, who instead of confessing, tries to manipulate him again. Losing patience, Yi Cha is ready to attack him, but suddenly, the White Ghost assassins appear and launch an assault. However, Yi Cha's exceptional skills allow him to defeat them all with ease. As a final attempt to make Yi Cha submit, the Grand Secretary threatens to kill Jin Yi unless Yi Cha surrenders. But, in a twist, Jin Yi, who has been a loyal friend, chooses to sacrifice himself. Enraged by this loss, Yi Cha strikes down the Grand Secretary, marking the end of Mao Pavilion's deadly assassin organization. Not long after, Yi Cha and Yi Li recover their father Zhu Zi's hidden remains, which had been concealed by the Grand Secretary. Eventually, they cremate him and bring his ashes to a priest. Thinking that peace will finally return, they soon find their hopes dashed. Although the Grand Secretary confesses his crimes under interrogation, a direct order from the Emperor demands that the confession be falsified, allowing the Grand Secretary to go free. As a result, the blame for all of Mao Pavilion's misdeeds is now shifted to Zhu Zi's descendants. The next day, Yi Cha visits Wu Wei to discuss something privately. While they are alone, Yi Li shows Chunmi a gift that Wu Wei gave her. Noticing something odd about it, Chunmi quickly heads to see Zheng Yuan. Her instincts prove correct. She discovers that Wu Wei has forced Zheng Yuan to sign an arrest warrant for Yi Cha, holding him responsible for all Mao Pavilion's crimes. Meanwhile, at Wu Wei's residence, Yi Cha reveals that he has known of Wu Wei's intentions ever since he gave Yi Li a jade stone. This jade, used for city entry permission, was Wu Wei's subtle attempt to help Yi Cha escape. However, Yi Cha has chosen to face the consequences head-on instead. Wu Wei then explains the Emperor's motives for holding Zhu Zi's lineage responsible. In the past, Zhu Zi, who had been the crown prince, was dethroned for war crimes. Ever since, he had been building Mao Pavilion, with ambitions to reclaim the throne that was once his. With Zhu Zi now deceased, the emperor wishes to end this conflict at its root, preventing any lingering vendetta from resurfacing. Thus, as Zhu Zi's male heir, Yi Cha is expected to bear the burden of responsibility. Refusing to accept this decision, Chunmi boldly challenges Wu Wei on the grounds of justice. She passionately pleads for the chance to defend Yi Cha in Chang'an, convinced that there is still hope to secure his freedom. Moral lesson from the story: the best way to clear your family's name is with a wild defense, a little fish soup, and a lot of stubbornness. And remember, if things go wrong, having a legal argument and a fierce attitude might just be your secret weapon.